So welcome and thank you for dedicating an hour out of your schedule for this discussion. I'm truly grateful, and it's really an honor for me to be able to share what I can with you from my own journey and my own experiences. This theme of thrive with heart, and I'm going to kind of cut to the chase here. With some real honesty right up front. There is no other way to thrive. There isn't. It's not possible. It's not possible to thrive without heart. And today's discussion, I'm going to highlight that and make it very clear for you. Of course, if your definition of thriving is still how much money you can make, how successful you can be, how much you can accumulate, that you can do all day long. But I can guarantee you that something will always be missing from your life. Always. Probably in multiple areas if you aren't connected into your heart. So success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And that's a quote from Tony Robbins, but it's true. And we're going to be speaking a lot about the disconnection from ourselves and the reconnection back into ourselves. Before we get into it, I also want to highlight that it doesn't matter who you are in this webinar. It doesn't matter whether you're a CEO, a lawyer, an accountant, an engineer, a stay-at-home dad, stay-at-home mom. The origin of what keeps us stuck, the origin of what creates our suffering, is universal and common to all. Okay, so we are not united by our successes. If you were to sit in a circle with a bunch of people and they all started telling you about who they are and how successful they are, you'd lose energy very quickly. You'd probably start yawning within 10 minutes, right? No one cares. But the moment we start speaking about our struggles, everyone sits forward and pays attention, because that is what unites us. And what you'll learn today in the next hour, or within the next hour, is that common struggle that kind of we can all relate to, that we can all understand. Okay. If I can end this webinar with you having the understanding, the belief, the remembering that you are limitless creative potential, that you are pure unconditional love at the core of your being. And if that's remembering or understanding, not necessarily knowing the how to get there, but just knowing the truth of it, so that it sets you on a trajectory of inquiry back towards your heart, then we've achieved our job today, right? But the idea is to show you the path, to show you a map of how to get back there, but why it's so crucial, why it's so important. And as I said earlier, why we'll never truly feel whole and fulfilled and at peace without returning to our authentic nature, the true self, the open heart. When I say that you are limitless potential, that is not a woo-woo, let's feel good, rah-rah kind of quote. It is backed by studies. It's backed by science. One of the studies that was done revealed that 98% of 4- and 5-year-old children, which includes everyone in this webinar, right? 98% of 4- and 5-year-olds are functioning at genius level. And the tests were credible. They would give these children complex problems to solve. These young children wouldn't only solve the problems, they would solve them in 10 to 12 different ways. What's interesting about the study is that these young children haven't yet developed full rational capacity. They haven't formed a strong intellectual mind. They're still in their innocence. They are in their no sense. They haven't needed to make sense of anything. They are connected to pure creative essence. Not only are they connected to it, it is who they are. We are pure creative essence. And that's how they're living life. That is prior to any conditioning, right? So we are all born into genius naturally by design. The sad thing is the study goes on to reveal that by the time we get to age 10, so only 5 years later, 6 years later, only 30% of us, 30% of 10-year-olds still have access to their natural creative genius. By the time we get to adulthood, it's down to 2%, right? So only 2% of adults are still showing up in life and responding from a deep knowing of who they are, fully connected into their creativity, their essence, and bringing the best of themselves into everything they do. They are still in their wholeness. All right, that's another way to express this. So this webinar is largely about helping you to understand, firstly, that you are limitless creative potential and you come from unconditional love. Love is not something we do, it is something we are. And we're all searching for it out there because we've disconnected from it internally. And so later on in the 60-minute session, we're going to be speaking about how we are developing these radical coping mechanisms and need to control other people and situations to compensate for the unmet needs of our childhood, right? And that's a big theme for our discussion. But what we're going to be discussing is how we lose connection to that natural genius, how we stay stuck in our stuckness, in our suffering, repeating cycles, repeating self-sabotaging behaviors. Potentially, we can stay stuck there for an entire lifetime, but ideally, we want to embrace the path back, which is the completion of what we could call the hero's journey, right? The hero's journey, which is very much the underpinning theme for the discussion, is the understanding that we are born into pure potential. We lose the truth that we are to a story, to a narrative, to circumstance. And then we meet the wise man or some circumstance or situation in life that gives us a bit of a wake-up call. Okay. Sometimes if we don't listen to the soft knock from life, inviting us to return to our truth, which always does come, by the way, the gentle knock always arrives, inviting us to explore where we're unhappy, to explore what the body's telling us about the discomfort, the dis-ease, all warning signs, all messages inviting us to get back on track. And we don't pay attention. We are trying to solve ourselves cognitively. We are trying to medicate. We're trying to fix. We're trying to numb, rather than remaining curious as to why I feel a particular way or why a particular thing is happening in my life. Again, a big theme for the discussion is learning to replace judgment with curiosity in any situation for it to turn into a growth opportunity. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later. But we receive the invite to get back on track, to complete that journey, to return to ourselves. And when we look at it through the lens of the victim, why is this happening to me? Why am I suffering? Why does life never work out? Why isn't this door opening? Why didn't this opportunity come my way? Why did this deal fall through? That experience or that perspective that we're holding onto and through which we're experiencing the experience is actually coming from the conditioned mindset that doesn't understand that life is always happening for us and not to us. And life is always, even when my business is falling apart or my relationship is massively challenged or there's chaos or turmoil, that chaos and turmoil is the invitation to break down the old construct of what is serving the false self, if I can put it that way. It's serving the illusion of who I think I am, and the very part of me that's creating my stuckness and my suffering. It's life is coming in and trying to break it down, and I'm holding on. All right. So what does that look like? Let's talk a little bit more about what that looks like. But as I said, the invitation always arrives, and if the answer isn't called with the subtle messages and guidance, the knock gets louder and louder. I mean, that certainly happened to me. I ignored all the warning signs. I wasn't happy. I was anxious. I was depressed. I wasn't enjoying the corporate environment I was in for many, many years. And I kept doing what I did because I had to pay the bills and I had to survive and I had to impress and I had to meet expectation and I had to do all these things. And I was doing it all for everyone else. And I wasn't concerned or even thinking about what's happening to me internally and is this for my highest good, you know? So we can so quickly lose ourselves to a survival-based mindset. So let's talk about how we lose ourselves. How does this happen? How does a 4-year-old child or a 5-year-old child who is in absolute presence, they are so connected to their hearts. They are vibrating at such a high frequency. So young children are they're not stuck in the beta brainwave, right? Which is think, 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 solve, 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 defend, defend, defend. They've got no reason to. They're in their wholeness. They're connected to everything. So they're present. They're open. There's a lot of theta brainwave function, and they are just flowing with creative genius. It's flowing through them, not from them, because they are connected into all knowing. They are so connected into their intuitive self. That's where we all come from, right? And so what happens, right? What happens is, firstly, we need to understand that the human baby is the most vulnerable of all of God's creatures, right? The human child is the most vulnerable. In the wilderness, all other animals have a lot more resilience. They learn about the environment much faster and they develop an independence to be able to take care of themselves very quickly, relatively speaking. But the human baby is absolutely defenseless. If the baby doesn't get fed or doesn't get protected or isn't held or nurtured, his or her life is directly threatened. And intrinsically, we're aware of that. We know that as young children, we know how reliant we are. So we are really reliant on the healthy attachments to our caregivers. We also have our natural creative genius that I've been talking about. And the problem comes in when our natural creative genius, which is the expression of energy through me, it's an expression of a creative life force that is also the same channel through which my emotions flow. When that expression, the child throwing a tantrum, the child is honestly speaking his or her opinion about something, whatever the children do, the quirkiness, the sensitivity, the kinds of things that would trigger a parent who has already been conditioned out of their authentic nature, a parent who has already been conditioned by their parents, who have already been conditioned by their parents, by their parents, by their parents, and so the burdens get handed down. So my parents, because of society, because of the schooling system, because of how they were raised, according to rules of right and wrong, which are very much based on circumstance, not truth. The rules that were handed down from parent to child are largely based on circumstance, not truth. This is the right religion. This is the right skin color. This is the right way to do this. This is the wrong way to do that. So we can look at it on multiple levels, right? But the bottom line is, at some points, our natural expression becomes an inconvenience. And it might simply be the young child throwing a tantrum in a shop because they want their chocolate. And the moment the parents, through their own conditioning, because what we don't transform, we will transfer. Okay. So through their own conditioning, they start saying, stop doing that. Otherwise, you're going to get punished. Oh, and keep doing more of that because that makes you a good boy or a good girl. So, me with this deep knowing that I need my parents, I need their love, and I need their protection to stay alive, the first thing I will do as a young child is I will preserve the attachments and the need to be protected and to be seen and to be acknowledged and to try and get some love. And I will sacrifice my authentic expression to maintain that. So, what I do is I start to adapt my behavior to the requirements of my environment so that I can feel safe and loved and seen and validated. So, whatever gets me the reward, I start to overemphasize as a repetitive behavior. I repeat the behavior over and over and over because it gets a particular result. And I start to suppress my truth, my voice, my expression, my sensitivity, whatever it is that dad or mom tells me is not cool or it's not acceptable or this is not how it's done. So I'm born into wholeness, and if I consider my wholeness as maybe being like a circle, that wholeness through the expression of certain parts of me and the expression of certain parts and the suppression of other parts has my wholeness looking a bit more like a starfish shape or a puzzle piece. All right, no longer in my wholeness. So now I'm developing an identity, right? In the first 5 to 7 years of my life, I go through the individuation phase. I start to recognize, oh, hang on, in this body, in this form, I'm now suddenly not experiencing myself as one with everything, like I did when I was the young child who believed and felt and knew about this connection to everything. Um, I'm now I'm now recognizing I'm separate from my mother, I'm separate from the cot, I'm separate from these things. And so I start to recognize my uniqueness relative to my environment. Forming my identity through the filter of how I've been treated by my parents also has me taking on a whole bunch of new, new limiting beliefs about who I am and who I believe I am. Understanding that a young child does not have the rational capacity, as I said earlier. So what they will do is when dad doesn't know how to love me, and maybe he's abusive, maybe mom is too busy with work and distracted and never home, whatever the case may be. So whether it's mild neglect that I'm experiencing, or maybe just like absent parents, or maybe it's hectic abuse, or anything in between. What the young child does, because of the lack of rational capacity, they don't look at the parents and go, they've got issues. Dad's having a bad day. Dad doesn't know how to love me. All they can think is, I'm not lovable. If dad isn't loving me, I'm not lovable. If they're always fighting, I'm doing something wrong. And the young child makes it about them and they take it on. And so, regardless of whose stuff it is, what's being projected, understanding that maybe my dad himself went through a tough time and didn't know any better or wasn't loved as a child, right? So we can't blame our parents or our caregivers for how they treated us or what they did because they didn't know a better way. And we don't know what we don't know. So if my parents weren't raised in loving households, they don't know anything about it. So they don't know how to give it to me, right? So ideally, we don't want to hold grudges towards our parents. We also don't want to blame ourselves for how we are raising our children. And after this webinar, we don't be, oh my gosh, after what I've heard, I'm recognizing I should have done things differently. No, we can't do what we don't know how to do. That is called fate, right? When I learn better, I do better. So we're not going to blame our parents or anything like that. But the young child takes the belief on, I'm not enough. I'm not enough. I'm not enough because of what I'm experiencing. What happens then is because of this perceived flawed identity that the child now has, and this could be the age of 8 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old, and it'll accumulate, right, in those early years. They then start to recognize that because I'm not enough, because I'm not lovable for who I am, and I have to do things in order to feel the love or to feel safe, they start to create a strategy. As I said earlier, it's repetitive behaviors, new behaviors in order to feel what they're missing, in order to feel the love. So the young child might recognize that every time they come home with the trophy for winning the race, suddenly dad's going like, give me the high five, you're amazing, right? Or when they perform well in a school test, or they do something of any kind of achievement, they get recognized and told how amazing they are. What the young child then believes, they form the belief, oh, okay, so I'm not enough for who I am, I'm enough for whatever I achieve. The same applies to the people pleaser. Young child not naturally receiving a lot of love or affection. And just to make it very clear, some distinction, because I hear a lot of my clients telling me that they were raised in loving households. Providing shelter, food, and stuff is not love. It might be the only way your dad or mom knows how to love. It might be the only way they know how to provide affection, but it's not affection. It's not love. Love is being seen, being held, being nurtured, being present, connecting emotionally. Nothing else is actually love, right? It's their only way. It's the only way they know how to do it, right? So this young child is not getting the love. Every time they do something for their mother or their father, they do something for someone else, they get a little bit of acknowledgement. And it seems to be the only time. So they develop the belief, okay, I'm not enough for who I am. I'm enough for what I do for others. And the same applies to the peacekeeper, the active controller, and whatever strategy you chose to just try to feel safe, to be seen, to be loved. That strategy, that repetitive behavior became your personality, right? The word personality, the word persona, is derived from the Latin word for mask. Your personality is literally the mask that you wear as the strategy you chose to cope with your upbringing. Now, we're not saying that personality is a bad thing. It's your mind, it's your thinking mind, which consists of a range of personas, not only one. There's a dominant one, but there are a whole bunch in there that all have their own agenda and strategy to try and keep you safe in the world. All right, we're going to be talking a bit more about that in a moment. But that is what your persona is. You are not your personality. You are creative potential. You are the creative essence of who you are. We could also call the soul. You are your soul, and we are designed to live our lives from our creative center to then inform the mind about what to achieve, what to implement, what to do. But we have lost our creative center to the conditioned mind, and we're allowing the mind itself to try and show us the way and make our decisions for us. Right. And so we've lost connection to our natural flow and our natural design. We've lost ourselves to a personality. And this is the wound, the common wound that unites all of us. It's the greatest pain you will ever experience. And that is losing your creative heart, the seat of your authentic confidence and natural well-being. We've lost that to a defensive, fear-based, controlling mind. Okay. So that is how we lose ourselves. How do we stay stuck? The way we stay stuck is the very fact that persona is defensive in nature. The way it tries to keep us safe, because that's what our persona is actually trying to do. The achiever, the people pleaser, the controller, okay? These are all ways that our ego, which is also synonymous with obviously the defensive mind or our personas, that is the way that part of ourselves is trying to keep us safe. And what we're going to do in a moment is I'm going to go through the common qualities of persona so you can really understand what the nature of your persona is all about and what it's trying to achieve, and how the very way it's trying to achieve what it's trying to achieve is the very way that it is keeping you stuck. Okay. But before I launch into that, I want to just maybe wrap what I've just been sharing in an analogy so you can have a beautiful visual of how this plays out and what it looks like. So I want you to imagine the game of chess. And when you live life believing that you are your persona, simply meaning that you've got the mask, right? As I said, persona literally means mask. You've got that mask so firmly fitted to your face that it is who you identify yourself as. This is who I am. I'm the achiever. I am the boss. I'm this. I'm that. I am my role. When we have that mask so firmly fitted to our face, and we have a particular strategy that we're very familiar with, which we picked up in childhood as our way to be seen, to survive our circumstances. That is like believing you are the piece on the chessboard. There are certain moves you're really good at. These are your moves. This is how you had to survive. People pleasing, achieving, etc. But as you know, through the game of chess, your moves are very limited. There's only certain things you can do on the board, right? That limits your view of the game. It limits what you're able to do in any given moment. And to a large extent, it feels like you're being played, right? Because you have pulled your creative awareness, this incredible, expansive, limitless creative potential, the intuitive inner self that is connected into all things, that knows the best move in any situation. You've pulled that into, and you've lost it to the limited perspective of that one persona's vantage point and view. Okay, so you've pulled your creative awareness right down into a narrow thinking mindset and a particular perspective. There's the piece on the board, doing its thing, just trying not to get kicked off the board, right? A lot of anxiety, some depression, possibly even because of the disconnect. And while we're struggling to play this game on the board, what we have completely forgotten is that we're not the piece on the board. We're the player of the game. I am the player of the game. The moment I return to my creative center, to my open heart, and I live from there, and I allow that energy and that life force to inform what happens next, what starts to happen naturally is I'm now sitting in the position of the player, and suddenly I see there's a whole range of other moves that I now have access to. And I can play the game from my center of power, right? So in this analogy, I want you to understand a couple of things very quickly before we go into a bit more detail around what persona is and how to master it, how to get persona to work with you in a positive way. I want you to understand that our job is not to get rid of the ego. When I first started my conscious journey 20 odd years ago, I went on this spiritual crusade, and I recognize it in other people that I sometimes come across. It's all about love and light, kill the ego. Really? We're here living a three-dimensional reality. I've got to navigate this life through my human self, and I want to kill that part of me. Good luck. Good luck. So, what I've come to understand, we are not here to kill the ego. We're not here to numb the mind out or get rid of it or bypass it. That's the other problem people are making. In their spiritual practices, they're trying to skip past the mind, bypass the defensive mind. Most of you, I'm sure all of you know by now how strong your mind is. Good luck trying to bypass that thing. Your mind knows you better than you know yourself because it is itself, right? So it's the mind knowing itself and knowing exactly how to defend and protect and to block whatever it needs to block in its attempt to keep you safe. And the only way you'll ever get your mind to really support you is to show it a better way. Right? Because your mind is not the enemy. So we're recognizing we're not here to wipe the pieces off the chessboard. We are here to take up our center, our seat of centered awareness, presence, open hearts, bringing the wounded child, healing the wounded child back into the sacred child, right? And then I develop a practice, and it will become second nature once you do the right kind of work and a bit more practice. It becomes second nature to live from your center and then to inform the resource, not the identity. This is not who you are. This is who you are. So we start to recognize my mind and my egos and all these different persona reactions in the world. It's not who I am. But yes, there are amazing strategies that I can implement from love, from truth, from my creative center. So my achiever, that part of me that helped me to survive my entire upbringing, that knows how to get shit done, I'm going to put that guy to good use, right? But if the achiever is informing himself or herself, it's always going to come from a defensive place. So now the achiever wants to achieve for themselves. It's about me. What can I get out of this? What can I achieve? How can I get another 50 million in the bank? How can me, right? That's what happens when the mind is serving itself. And because the mind is naturally defensive, it's protective in nature, it's always going to make it about me at the cost of everything else and at the cost of the rest of me. Because that part of my mind only has one agenda and it's only got one job to do and it doesn't care about anything else, right? When I return to my heart, I can then empower the achiever self or the people pleaser or any other part of me. I can empower that part of myself and evolve it back into a creative role rather than a defensive role. So now, because I'm back in my heart, because I'm giving myself the love that my people pleaser has been trying to get from the rest of the world, I've taken responsibility to love myself. So now my people pleaser nature gets evolved into the caregiver. No longer because it needs something in return or needs to be seen or needs to be loved, because the love is already here. I've taken care of that. I'm back in my essence. I'm filling my cup with self-love. Now I've got the authentic caregiver that can come in and do this kind of work, and I'm saying this with intention because I recognize my own path, my own journey. When I first started out trying to help others and trying to empower others, I was doing it from the wounded caregiver. I was still making it all about me. So I would show up in a webinar like this with my script perfectly rehearsed and almost like word for word because I had to get it perfect. I had to get it right. I had to be good enough. I wasn't connected to my audience. I wasn't showing up with the intention to give them the best version of myself that I can give them for their sake, for their benefit, for their growth, for their evolution. It is all about me. And I had to recognize, like, geez, I've still got lots of healing to do. And so I kept going, kept going, kept going. And by no means have I arrived, still very much on the path because there is no destination. There's only one eternal unfolding moment, and we're always growing and evolving. But I can say with absolute certainty that I'm not here to be perfect. I'm here to get a message across. And as I'm saying that, I can feel my heart wide open, and that allows me to love what I do. It brought me back into fulfillment rather than obligation and expectation. And I have to now be there for other people because that's what I do. No, no, no. I love it. I love it because I'm arriving with my heart wide open. And not always. Sometimes my heart shuts down and I've got to do some work, that's part of the game. But this is the only way back to a harmonious life where you can have the best of everything. And I don't say that lightly. We're not designed to struggle. We're not designed to work our asses off. Yes, there are times when we've got to work hard, but we're not meant to live forcefully. That's the difference. We are not naturally designed to be forceful, right? So when I return to my open heart and my creative flow, life joins in and starts to support me. And then I'm achieving incredible things by harnessing my persona as a resource, but I'm responding from my heart. And then the flow just gets stronger and stronger. Okay. I'm just seeing how the time is flying by. My goodness. Okay. I'm going to go into some practical things for you to understand quickly because I really want you to get some take-home value from this talk. I've already mentioned that you all have around, well, there's no number, but you all have easily 8, maybe even 10 personas that form your thinking mind that have an agenda to try and keep you safe in the world, right? But you'll have a dominant one or two. You also have a range of sub-personas that are slightly more dormant and they get activated in certain situations. You might suddenly go into road rage and you go like, where did that come from? Like as a scenario, as one example. So to just understand that persona, the Latin word for mask, is the formation of parts of your mind that recognized they had to keep you safe at different stages of your upbringing, and they chose different strategies to do that, like trying to control everybody, micromanaging everything, being jealous with everything, being people pleasing, being achieving, controlling, etc., etc., etc. All personas have got an agenda to try and keep you safe. Right. That's the first thing I want you to understand. The second thing is all personas and everything they do, no matter how dysfunctional, have positive intentions. Really important to understand that. Even when they are screwing everything up, even when they are hurting other people, they have positive intentions. I'll give you a simple example. We can talk about the inner addict, right? Many of us can relate to the inner addicts. Addiction is not limited to heroin and cocaine and alcohol. We are addicted to comfort eating. We are addicted to binge watching Netflix. We are addicted to many things in different ways. So to some degree, we're probably all addicted to something, right? So the inner addict is one we can all relate to. So when I work with a client and I personify their inner addicts, and I am talking about the serious addict, like heroin, someone who has destroyed their lives and the lives of their loved ones because of their habits, right? And you can imagine that they've developed such a strong judgment and potentially even a hatred towards that part of themselves that has caused that incredible pain in their lives. And I'll get them to personify their inner addict. And the first thing I'll say to them is because now I've got my clients engaging their own inner addict and almost like having a conversation with them. And I'll say, the first thing I want you to say to your inner addict is thank you. And they're looking at me going like, excuse me, this part of me that's caused havoc in my life, that's destroyed everything, I must say thank you. And I'll say, yes, yes, because without your inner addict, without that part of you doing what it did, maybe you wouldn't have survived. Maybe you wouldn't be here today. Maybe the pain would have been too much. That part of you stepped up with huge commitments to do whatever it needed to do to protect you from your pain that at some point you did not know how to deal with. That pain could be severe sexual abuse. That pain could be absolute abandonment and abuse. So So we recognize that whether it's the addicts, whether it's the people pleaser, whatever it is, even though it's causing havoc and causing problems in my life, when you stop judging that part of yourself and you just remain compassionate and curious, you'll get to the deeper truth. It doesn't know a better way, but it's trying to help you. Quick example, procrastination, right? When I sit with my procrastination and I go like, jeepers, I'm trying to get this thing done. Why can't I get my ass behind the laptop to get this thing prepared? And maybe I'm preparing for like a public talk for 200, 300 people, maybe 1,000 people. And my procrastination is going, no, no, distraction, distraction, distraction. And I'll sit, take a deep breath and go, what's up? Talk to me. What's happening here? And the deeper truth arrives. This part of me is terrified that I'm going to make a fool of myself and get rejected and get laughed at by the entire audience, like what happened when I was 7 years old in primary school, or whatever the old story is that I'm still reacting from. So every one of my personas, like I said, no matter how dysfunctional or seemingly positive, is holding on to a story that played out when I was young, and that story remains unresolved. There's the deep down, okay, the neurological, the neuroscientific term for this, it's called your default mode network. Your default mode network is the part of your brain that stores your sense of self. And if you haven't gone back to explore those deeply held limiting beliefs that you're holding on to, then your personas and your mind is still factoring that as the truth. In this situation, I'm not good enough, therefore I have to react in this way. I'm not the world is unsafe, and therefore I've got to micromanage everybody at the office, right? I always get hurt by women, and therefore I've got to be super possessive and jealous because when I was 7, my mom did this thing. Okay. So the persona is not reacting from truth. The persona is reacting from experience. Experiences from childhood and early life that potentially are no longer valid or real. But that part of your mind hasn't learned or doesn't know any other way. So it's still trying to protect your 5-year-old self. It's still trying to protect your 3-year-old self, your 10-year-old self, your 7-year-old self. And so how do we transform that is by identifying the behavior. First the persona, then identifying the behaviors of that persona, and then coming in and saying, I don't want to fight with you. I want to befriend you. I want to befriend my personas and my mind so that I can firstly understand how it's trying to help me and then show it a better way. And the moment your mind logically can understand the better way and that the old way is actually causing more pain, it will start to support you because your mind is not trying to cause you pain. It thinks it's helping and doesn't know a better way. That's it. Your mind and your ego, same thing, is actually your most loyal servant. It's your most loyal servant. It is doing what it thinks it needs to do, what it thinks you want it to do. Okay, so that's 2 things on persona. That is what your mind exists of. It's a range of personas, all trying to keep you safe in the world, very much through the intellect. And then we've got this understanding that everything I do has a positive intention. And then the point I've already mentioned, which I'm going to mention again, this is really important to understand. You've all seen the matrix, right? I'm about to explain the matrix to you. Your view of reality in any given moment, in other words, what you can see, how you can respond, is never based in the truth of what's really there, unless you're coming from your creative center. The moment you're coming from your persona or any persona, you can only see the reality through the lens of that persona. So what's the true potential of the moment, the true possibilities, the true solutions that I otherwise have access to are not available to me when I'm in the persona of the achiever who has to do a certain thing and can only see a certain thing and is referencing the old story that is also informing what is being seen and creating the reality itself, or the perception of the reality is more accurate, right? Only when I remove the mask and I once again expand or allow my energy to expand back into or from my creative center, it all expands. Pulling into the thinking mind, it all contracts. So from this place, there's no more mask. Everything opens up. And I respond with wisdom. I respond from truth, ultimate truth, not relative truth, right? So to really understand that when you have the mask fitted to your face, you cannot see true reality. You can only see partial reality. But that is the true reality of the ego, of that particular mindset. We can simply look at energetic states to illustrate this point as well, right? So I want you to imagine if you're feeling super stressed, tense, exhausted, anxious, and you've got this like tight, like kind of energy. How do things look? What's the quality of your thinking? And we all know that you're not thinking very happy thoughts. You're not thinking about the best next move. You're not thinking about going for the run or doing something uplifting. You just want to go and get the cake out the fridge and hide on the couch and watch Netflix or whatever that coping mechanism might be for you, right? So that's what I'm saying is when you've got the mask fitted, you don't see what's there. You only see through the lens of that particular persona. And then the last thing I want to mention about persona is, and again, I've already alluded to this as well. I call it the paradox. The painful paradox is a good term for it. The painful paradox is the way that your personas are trying to protect you from pain are causing more pain. Always. There's no exception to this. The ways in which your personas are trying to protect you from pain are actually just causing more pain. Okay. And we can look at any persona coping mechanism and recognize there might be a temporary resolve, there might be a temporary numbing or a temporary feeling okay, but the pattern and the habit and the very coping mechanism itself keeps me stuck in a loop of suffering. Because what my mind is trying to do is it's trying to pull me away from the unprocessed emotional pain of my past with these different coping mechanisms. It's trying to solve things externally rather than allowing ourselves to dissolve internally. When we stop trying to solve ourselves and we allow ourselves to dissolve through the resistance, through the shielding of the persona, and we drop into the unmet needs and the pain caused by the unmet needs of our upbringing, that is the only path back to true freedom and well-being and ultimate success. There is no other path. There is no other path because ultimate freedom is a state of being. It's not something I buy off a shelf. It's a state of being. It's a natural state of being. But what's blocking the natural state of well-being and the ability to show up creatively in everything I do and to uplift every moment and to empower my workforce and to bring love into my relationships, what's blocking that natural ability and that natural expression is the accumulation of pain that remains unresolved because of a dysfunctional upbringing that I haven't yet gone back to process. So when I help the mind and the different parts of the mind and the different sabotaging behaviors and the different coping mechanisms, when I help that part of the mind to understand we're going in the wrong direction, guys. We've got to stop running away from ourselves. When I help my mind to understand that whatever I resist will persist. Whatever I resist will persist. When I help my mind to understand that we cannot transform what we cannot accept. Because if I'm pushing my pain away, where is away? It's just deeper back into myself. And so I'm pushing the stuff deep into myself, and I'm running around the world trying to change the whole world so I can feel okay, and my pain's chasing me wherever I go. So I can demand love from my wife. I can demand growth in my business. I can demand the 50th million. I can demand and create and achieve all kinds of external stuff. The same pain that I haven't yet processed, no matter what I do externally, will still be following me wherever I go, which is the very reason why I work predominantly with high achieving entrepreneurs, CEOs, executive level individuals. These are true change makers, right? Some of them are global leaders, and I work a lot at that level. And these guys are not short of resources. They've achieved plenty. Not one of them started out happy in our conversations because they didn't recognize that they were trying to get the 100th million or the billion as a compensation for something that the inner child was missing through upbringing. But the unresolved emotions got no room to move if we keep pushing this down and trying to change externally, right? So there is no other way. We have to befriend our personas and we have to befriend our emotions as well. Because what is emotion? Emotion is energy in motion, and emotion is meant to move. So that young child, by the way, guys, I'm going to pause for a moment. I can see I'm about to go probably 30 minutes over time here in our 60-minute webinar. For those of you who can't stick around, please catch up with the rest of this with the recording. Otherwise, I invite you to stay on. I just felt called to expand the conversation. So forgive me for going over time, but I think it's going to be very valuable. Okay, so you can watch the rest of this in the recording if you need to leave. All right. But what I want to make very clear is that sacred child who was connected into source and had the full creative potential moving through, one of the ways it lost that potential through conditioning is by suppressing emotion. So yes, forming beliefs, I'm not good enough and I'm not lovable because I'm not being loved. So these are the false beliefs we took on. But then the child also started suppressing emotion. And that is the biggest problem. These are the low vibration energies that start to block connection to the high vibration love state of our being. Because if you look at the calibration of emotion, and if you want to know more about that, you can explore Dr. David Hawkins' work, okay, the scale of consciousness. But if you look at the calibration of emotion, you'll recognize that the emotions are all vibrating at different frequencies. The young sacred child, prior to conditioning, was naturally vibrating at a very high frequency. So it's the natural vibration of joy, unconditional love, the frequency of God, right? That high vibration frequency. And then we start to experience the upbringing where boys are being told, boys don't cry, don't be a pussy, put on your boy pants, stop being so sensitive, right? And maybe girls are experiencing experiences that they are too young to be able to process because maybe there's trauma there and the young child wouldn't know what to do with that pain and there's no one there to hold her. I'm just giving you two scenarios of many possible scenarios. But any scenario that had you not feeling safe to feel the emotion of that experience all the way through so it could release out of you would have you locking the emotion as a suppression into your body. What is that? It's a bundle of energy. and it's a bundle of energy vibrating at a lower frequency to your natural vibration. So if we were to use the analogy of running water, let's say you in your natural flow state, like pure crystal clear running water, every time you suppress a heavier emotion like shame or grief or anger, you're getting ice blocks in your water. Ice block, ice block, ice block, ice block. After 30 years of suppressing emotions, we're wondering why more than 70 million people in the world are struggling with anxiety and depression, right? Because we have suppressed so much and depressed so much that we don't even know who we are anymore. And we are trying to function in life from a irregular, low vibration state that then not only has us feeling heavy and low, it informs a skewed view of reality. Because suddenly I'm suppressed in this low energy that I'm carrying around with me and have been accumulating for the last 20, 30 years, and the world looks like a shit show. The world looks terrifying. I don't even want to get out of bed in the morning because I wake up feeling this anxiety. But it's not the world putting the anxiety into me. It's the anxiety I've been accumulating for the last 30 years. So it's already there. It's already there. It isn't coming from the outside world, and it is informing how I see the outside world, right? So I've got to recognize the only way back to my full power, full potential, is to embrace what I've been running away from. Okay. And how do we even make that possible? Because we can sit here going, oh, rah, 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 this is a great chat, amazing. And then tomorrow morning you find yourself on your mat trying to feel your depression, and you're like, fuck that. I'm not going there. And your mind will straight away pull you off your mat into distraction because it is conditioned to pull you away from the uncomfortable stuff, right? So I want you to take this analogy and to really sit with this and understand this, to give you the courage and the discipline to start sitting with your stuff and not running away from it, not comfort eating or comforting your way out of your discomfort, but dropping straight into it, right? I want you to imagine that you're a parent. Maybe if you are a parent, you don't have to imagine, right? But if you aren't a parent, imagine being a parent. Let's say you've got two children and two young children, innocent, beautiful young children, and they come running up to you one day, and the one is happy as can be, flowers, unicorns, rainbows, and they are just in bliss, right? And the other child is afraid, they're crying, and they're desperate for some support. And you standing there going, oh shit, I'm not in the mood for that right now. So I'm going to send my sad little kitty to a room and I'm going to spend some time with my happy child because I just want to be happy. Is that what a loving parent would do? Clearly not, right? Which of those two children needs the hug, right? The one that's carrying the heavy energy because something has upset them. And your triggered emotions, whether you get triggered into anxiety, whether you get triggered into anger, into grief, into fear, whatever unwanted emotion you get triggered into, it's like an inner child begging for your attention, wanting a big hug. And the moment you push it away and say, no, 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 I'm going to rather distract myself over here, it's like sending that little child back to a room, back to his room. So when we avoid our inner pain, when we avoid the unwanted emotions, the younger version of ourselves that is holding that pain at the origin of where it was caused is stuck in it. And we keep pushing them back into a dark corner. Right? So we've got to learn to befriend our emotions. And that means inviting in the stuff we haven't been wanting to feel. And what we start to recognize when we allow that, we start to recognize that when I make a practice of just with an open heart, feeling what's wanting to be felt from my past, I start to recognize that isn't what's been causing my suffering. Those are just emotions wanting to be seen. wanting to be felt. What's causing my suffering is the running away from those emotions. So our suffering is caused by the way we choose to run away from our pain. Our suffering is not being caused by the pain that we're holding. Really important distinction, okay? The emotions themselves are just energy. When I can sit with my anxiety, relax my entire body and just breathe, and almost like breathing the anxiety in with an expanded energy rather than pushing it away, I'm giving it room to move. I'm giving it room to be seen for maybe the first time, really seen and welcomed in. That is alchemy. That is transformation. Push it away, all it can do is come pop up and see me another day. That's all I can do. It's like if you take a beach ball down into the water, right? And you stop and you're pushing it down. That's what's happening with our suppressed emotions. You're trying to push the emotion down, and it's going to keep popping up and squirting you or smashing you in the face when you don't want it to. Okay. So, key things to take from this chat. If you want to be free, truly free, if you want to show up from your greatest potential for your highest good and the highest good of everyone around you, you've got to start working with the suppressed emotions in your body that are literally impacting your energetic blueprints. You've got to understand that we are physiologically hardwired. This isn't coming from me. This is coming from neuroscience, right? Again, the evidence is out there. We are physiologically hardwired for connection, kindness, love, and contribution. When we are being loving and caring towards ourselves and others, our entire body and being functions optimally. My best thinking, my best level of energy, the most optimistic viewpoint of my life and reality, access to the best solutions arrive when I'm flowing in that state of being, because it's our natural design. Why? Because it's part of how we were designed to survive as a species. Co-creation. Co-creation is very hard when you're not connecting naturally with people. It's much harder to co-create if connection and kindness and love isn't part of our natural design. So it stands to reason that we would be functioning best when we are most connected, right? And the evidence is out there. For those business people on the call, the evidence is out there. The most successful teams, this was a project done by Google Aristotle, right? The most successful teams are not the smartest teams. They are the most connected teams. Research done, right? Proven. So we've got to befriend our feelings. We've got to connect to ourselves. I can't connect with you from my heart if I'm not connecting to myself from my heart. As within, so without. And then to help you navigate your personas, I'm going to invite you into a quick exercise, all right? So what I want you to do is I want you to identify either a dominant persona. You might already be well aware of a persona you have that's maybe an achiever, or you love to control everything, or maybe you have OCD and everything has got to be in its right place, or you're a procrastinator, or you have an inner addict, whatever. I mean, there are 100 you could choose from. Just think about something in your life that's showing up a lot. It could be a particular persona or a particular habit. There's something I always do: procrastinate. So either the persona or the habit itself, and just pick one of those two for the exercise, just so you can understand, have a deeper insight into that part of yourself, so you can bring some deeper support in and start to develop self-understanding, which then leads to self-mastery, right? So I'm not going to give you much time because we are already short of time. So just be quick with this. Don't overthink it. Just pick something: a choice, a habit, or a persona that you want to explore. Then I want you to take a nice deep breath, and I want you to answer these 4 questions with curiosity and not judgment. If you're going to answer them from a judgmental mind, from this place of, oh, I don't want that part of me, I don't want this to be this way, you're never going to get the true answer. When you're in your heart And you simply understand that even that part of you that you're grappling with right now, that's causing havoc in your life, just know, even if you can't see it right now, that it has a positive intention and is trying to help you. Let that knowing, even if it doesn't yet have the understanding, bring you into a state of compassion and curiosity, just to explore what's really going on. So open your heart, relax, be courageously honest. This is just for you. You're not sharing this with anybody, right? So just for yourself. And I want you to answer the following question by allowing the deeper answer to arrive, not the shallow answers from your mind. We're going to go straight in with a big question. I normally soften this with some smaller questions and then we go for the big stuff. Much easier when I've got a client that I'm working with. So I'm asking you to go straight in, right? And here's the question. First question. What pain, what pain or fear is this part of you trying to stop you from feeling? What pain or fear is this part of you that's doing that thing, trying to stop you from feeling? Welcome the deeper truth in. Because it's based in positive intention, there's always going to be something it's trying to do. And it's always going to be trying to protect you from some kind of feeling or some kind of rejection or helping you to feel safe. What pain or fear is this part of you trying to stop you from feeling? And you can also come back and revisit these 4 questions if you have a bit more time and you want to get yourself into an optimized state for the questions. I'm going to send them to you, right? All those of you who are on the call, you're going to get this exercise sent to you as well. Second question. What is this part or this behavior scared will happen if it stops doing this thing? What is this part of you or this thing that you keep doing? What is it afraid will happen if it were to stop that behavior? Just trust the first answer that comes up. If it's a quality answer, one that comes from depth, just trust it. The third question. If this part of you that's doing that thing didn't have to do it anymore, let's say whatever's trying to protect you from is resolved. You've come in and you've taken care of the unmet need and you are filled with love and you don't need anything. So if this part didn't have to do that thing anymore, what would it rather be doing? What would it rather choose to do? If it didn't have to defend you and now it can be more creative, what might that creative thing be? Maybe it's being more considerate towards serving others and yourself. Or maybe it's just doing something for you in a more joyful, uplifting way, more creatively, less defensively. Again, just trust whatever comes up. If this part didn't have to protect you in that way, what would it love to be doing instead? I gave you the example earlier of the achiever. The achiever who's still stuck in their wounding needs to win the trophy to be good enough. That's the story. That's the untrue story, the narrative playing out. But it's still about them, right? So it's still based in a defensive mindset. So when that achiever no longer has to achieve because the individual feels good enough, and we ask, what would you rather be doing? We get answers like, oh, I want to help others achieve. I want to help others achieve. That'll be my achievements. Boom. Now we're on track. Now we're being creative. Now we're heart connected, right? And then we ask the fourth question. What would help this part that's doing that thing What would help this part feel safe enough to let go a little? What would help this part feel safe enough to let go a little bit? If you could come in as the center of your being or your essence and say, listen, whatever you're doing, I'll take responsibility for this, right? What is that thing? What is that thing that you've got to come in and do so that this part can ease off a bit and not have to do that thing, feel a bit unburdened from its role? Okay, because of time constraints, I'm gonna kind of stop the exercise there. I would normally unpack this in a full conversation, and there's normally 7 questions we ask in this one particular exercise. This is just a taste for the webinar of what it takes for you to really thrive, right? For you to really thrive, you've got to understand what your mind is doing, why it's doing it, help it to do it in a different way, and you've got to invite your mind to allow you in to yourself and not shield you from yourself. Okay. The key takeaway from this exercise, and like I said, I'll send it to you and you can do it again with different parts or the same part. But the key takeaway, what you want to get out of this is understanding that that part of you and these different parts of you are trying to protect you from something, some kind of pain or belief that you're holding that is flawed or limiting in some way, right? So that's the nature. So what you want to identify is what is the unmet need? What is the unmet need or the belief or the feeling that this part of me is trying to protect me from? That's the first thing we want to establish. And how can I take responsibility? I being not the part that I get stuck in with my mask. I step back from the part and I can now see that part as a separate thing. It's not me, it's just a part of me. So I can now come in from a center of power and go, I want to support this part. So if I take responsibility for the unmet need, so if this part of me is trying to protect me or trying to help me to be loved in the world, okay, cool. I'm going to love me. I'm going to take care of self love and make that my work. And that's going to unburden this part from having to do that thing. So whether it's self love, whether it's self acceptance, whether it's self whatever, if you take responsibility for meeting that need directly, you unburden the persona from having to do it externally through other people or other things. That's what we're after. Okay. The self awareness leads to the self mastery. And then you're no longer defending yourself in life and reacting in survival mode. You then can return to your beautiful, loving, open heart, which, by the way, should never close. There is nothing worth closing our hearts over. My heart was closed for 30 years because I carried so much pain from my past. I didn't even know what I was doing. I was in a loveless marriage for 10 years because I didn't know how to love. I lived in anxiety into my 30s, right? Masking it, hiding all these insecurities because my heart was shut down, right? And what I've been shown from life is nothing is worth closing your heart over. It's the greatest loss ever. Don't let anyone take that away from you, right? Rather feel the pain that life brings temporarily, but keep the heart open, and then you'll always be free. But now that we've already lost our way, we've got to find our way back again. Okay. Um, I also want to just quickly mention that your physiology has also been impacted by your choices. So, as much as everything I'm sharing with you is true, right? The best ways to change yourself is by working with your mind and evolving how it shows up and how it works with you. and feeling your emotions. Tick, tick. Those are the two main things. Feeling out the suppressed energies of the past. But to also understand that because of certain choices, your physiology has been taken out of harmony as well. So if you've been addicted to certain substances, it might even be simple caffeine addiction, but maybe it's alcohol addiction. You might get your mind to understand that it's got to serve you in a new way, and there might be a willingness, but there's now a chemistry imbalance in your body that's screaming for its need to be met. And you're going to have to support your physical body to also through the transformation as well, not just the mind, right? So whatever, if there's an addictive pattern, or if the pattern that you've chosen has caused some kind of physiological imbalance, look for a healthier way to meet that need while getting your mind on board in supporting you more creatively. Okay. We talk about the intention impact gap. So my persona or my mind has a positive intention, but it's meeting it in a dysfunctional way, and that creates a gap between the intention and the impact. What can I do to bridge the gap and to get the intention and the impact fully aligned? That's what we're after ultimately. Okay. So that is pretty much a wrap for what I want to share with you. It's going to potentially be a little bit difficult for you to navigate this on your own, right? There's a lot I can do with you, right? And maybe just to mention, and please, guys, I'm not here to sell. This webinar was not about me trying to sell anything. It really isn't. But there are ways I can assist you with this journey back to yourself because it's what I specialize in. And the reason I specialized in it is because I was lost for most of my life and disconnected from myself. And that caused so much unnecessary pain and suffering. So my own dysfunctional life has fueled me with a passion to want to be of service to others. And that's what drives me to be here. The ways that I'm currently able to offer or serve you for the men in the group, of which there aren't nearly as many as the women always show up. So for the men in the room, well done, guys. I really appreciate you being here. But I am running another men's retreat. It's the last one for the year. For the ladies in the room, please, if you have men in your lives, everything we've been discussing here and a whole lot more is exactly what we work with in this 3-day retreat. But we go way beyond understanding. We start with developing the understanding, but we go deep into the subconscious, into the somatic work, the inner child wounding, getting right in there and working and transforming that default mode network that's completely controlling how you show up in life and how you perceive yourself in the world, right? So we do all that deep work. It's a 3-day men's retreat. I won't go into detail. I'll drop the information into an email to you guys who are online here, where you can see more about what that 3 days entails. But it's important to remember or to know that there are only 12 slots. I'm not taking more than 12 people. I'm keeping it intimate and very individually focused. So once those 12 slots are gone, they're gone. The retreat is taking place the 20th to the 23rd of November. Okay, it's a Thursday to a Sunday, and I'll send you all the details for that. Then for everyone else, for the men and the women who aren't available for the retreat, I'm running an online program, which again covers everything we're doing. Not quite the same as the retreat. There's nothing quite like sitting in circle in person. It's very different. But the online program is potent, right? I've done a number of them. I'm running a 6-week online program from the 15th of October to the 26th of November for 6 consecutive Wednesdays. So it starts on the 15th of October, that Wednesday, and then it's every Wednesday through to the 26th. All sessions are recorded, so you don't have to attend every one of them live. You get the recording the next morning after the session, probably even the same day, and we form a WhatsApp group which is interactive, so you never left behind, even if you can't attend the live session on the day, right? I'm offering it for a really, really good price, the online program. I'm offering it for 3,900 for the entire 6-week program. Okay, we accumulate resources for you to continue practicing at home. So there's a resource library that you are given access to, obviously along with all the recordings. And I'm limiting the online program to 10 people. All right, only 10. More details to follow, because I want to still give time for Q&A. I've actually got German in me. You wouldn't say that if you consider to the extent to which I've gone over time. My goodness. Um, so let me park that, right? Those are things available. I do one-on-one coaching, but the one-to-one coaching is probably your biggest investment because you're going to pay a lot more for that individual focused time, right? So for value for money, I recommend the retreat or the online program as really good value for money. The breathwork session. All of you are going to get a free, full online breathwork session. Even though it's online, it's also potent, right? I do breathwork in person and online, and we have incredible results with the online breathwork, as some of you already know who are in the space. I'm going to be running that next week. I'm going to keep it to the exact same time and slot just for consistency. All right. So next week, Tuesday, this time we'll keep it kind of on track because I know how long that takes. So 10:30 through to 11. 10:30, sorry, to 12. 10:30, 11 through to 12. 10:30 to 12, full online breathwork session, free for you in the room. We're going to talk more about what to do, what to expect in that live call, and I'll send more details via an email. And you'll also get a recording of that online breathwork session if you can't make it live. Okay, that's me. Okay, to wrap up very quickly the entire webinar, I started by saying thriving with heart is the only way to thrive. Your essence and your heart are one and the same thing, right? And I can say with absolute conviction, and I'm hoping by now you are with me when I say you'll never find authentic confidence and genuine fulfillment without your heart and without your essence. There's something will always be missing. And there is something incredibly liberating about authentic confidence because there's no pretense to it whatsoever. It is so real. Authentic confidence is the full acceptance of who you are to the extent that you don't give a fuck about what anyone thinks about you. Oh, what a relief. Right? It's the only genuine confidence there is. It's me, but it's not arrogance. It's open-hearted, self-centered, self-acceptance just being expressed and going, this is me, guys. If you don't like me, leave. I'll send you a loving postcard. I don't need the world to love me because I've learned to love myself. Therein lies your true liberation, okay? And it's not just well-being. For the achievers in the room to really understand, well-being and fulfillment do not come at the expense of success. They are the fuel for your ultimate success. If you think you're successful now with your closed heart, just wait to see what happens when your soul is driving the bus and showing you what to do. Right? It will give you a vision that'll scare the shit out of you. Because your soul knows who you truly are and what you are truly. Your soul is responding from your limitless self. Your mind is playing small, going, oh, I'm going to start a new business. What do I know about myself? Past, 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 past. Your mind only knows your past experiences. That's it. Because that's what your mind is. It's an accumulation of your past experiences. So it can only inform the next choice from past experience. And yeah, your soul is waiting, just waiting for you to slow down and just breathe and come into your center, to be present, changing the frequency of the thinking. Suddenly, this deep wisdom starts to flow, deep recognition, and everything changes. It doesn't only change you, it starts to bring in synchronicity and divine support from all directions. Okay, and I'm not saying that lightly. In another forum, when I've got more time, I'll share some of my story with you, some of the miracles I've received every time I've courageously followed through on my authentic truth. The way life shows up for you is astounding when we stop trying to force our way through egoic defense down some one-way track.